I'd like to welcome everybody to our Doc Lab Q&A. Thank you for joining us. We had a very big response to this, so we know that this is something that people are very interested in, and I think there's a lot of people that are going to be applying after we hear from Selwyn and from Lynn as to what we're looking for, what mentorship is like, things like that. So we just wanted you to know that we're going to be recording and posting the session on our website afterwards as well. We acknowledge that the Whistler Film Festival is located on the unceded territory of the Squamish and Lowell Nations, and we honor their language, culture, and their history. I also wanted to let you know the good news is that we're planning to be live again in December for the Whistler Film Festival and Content Summit. So please sign up for our newsletter for up-to-date information and announcements. And Lynn and Selwyn will be there as well, which is fantastic. Reminder of our deadline, which is September 15th, and tuition is $7.50 Canadian. Please check the website though for all the guidelines and the information. We're here to answer some of the questions, but we don't have a lot of time to get into that. But if you have any questions, certainly feel free to email me. We want to remind everybody that this is a safe space for sharing and asking questions, but please message me directly if you have any questions or concerns or anything about the program after the recording. A reminder to keep your cameras and your microphones off and ask the questions in the chat. And even if we don't get to all of them in the Q&A section today, we are all available afterwards if you want to send us an email. So I'm sure that Lynn and Selwyn will throw their emails into the chat at the end. And I would like to turn this over to our fabulous advisor for year 2, Lynn Booth. And Lynn, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and it'd be kind of interesting to hear what kind of docs you're involved in. That would be interesting. And then maybe you can throw it to Selwyn to do the same. And I'm going to be I'll be off camera, but I'm going to be here feeding questions that sometimes from the chat to our guests. Okay, take it away, Lynn.
Great. Well, it's wonderful to be here. And thank you, Shelley, and Louise in the background for organizing this Q&A for the 2022 Whistler Film Festival Doc Lab. I'm a producer, sometimes and rarely a director, but really a producer for the last 25 years, I guess. And I have worked on a lot of different kinds of documentary. A lot of it's been commissioned for television and platforms over the last 20 years. A few independent feature documentary, made for Super Channel or with very, DIY and, resources that we cobbled together. But largely we've been working on films that are the nature of things or for the old global currents. And these days I'm working on nature of things and development and a few other projects with the Bell Slate Fund looking at wildlife and conservation. I'm also producing a series with a very talented young director and producer, looking at her work in storytelling of point of view series, history of the women who fought in the South Sudanese Second Civil War and who've come to Canada. So a wide range of projects. I love working with emerging talent right now, and working on the Doc Lab last year brought me in touch with great new talent and mid-career talent, and it's just a fabulous process. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll send it over to Selwyn, who has an even better track record.
Thank you very much. And before I go any further, I want to thank Lynn especially for convincing me that I should come on board this Whistler Doc Lab as a mentor. I tried to resist, but then she sort of said, no, you have to be there. And I think I made the right decision. Mentoring means a lot to me. When I was coming up as an emergent filmmaker back in the days in Edmonton, I never really had mentors. And after I'd finished a film, I'd realize I wish I had somebody who would have, taught me the correct ways of proceeding. Nonetheless, I produced and directed all of my films independently, starting in the mid-80s and throughout the 90s. So at that point, I would say I was a director-producer. And then from 97 until 2019, for 23 years, I was a producer at the National Film Board of Canada, based in Vancouver. And so the sort of films that I produce were not necessarily my personal stories, but stories that people pitched to me, and I found that I could relate to those stories. So I've done everything from, say, Linda Hammer's film about her grandmother when they were interned here in British Columbia, done film about the first Chinese cemetery in Canada by Ling Chu. Cheryl Fogo and I worked on the journey of Lesra Martin. I've done Hugh with Vic Sarin, and most recently, I did Ninth Floor with Mina Sham, Mighty Jerome, a Charles officer, and Baljit Sangra, Because We Are Girls. You know, so I have a wide range of films, but basically, I would say my stories have dealt with underrepresented in Canada, and just trying to get equity, diversity, and inclusion within the storytelling business here in Canada. So in a nutshell, that's kind of my background. I'm now, since I retired, I'm back into filmmaking, or actually mentoring. I'm not making films myself, but I'm working with a lot of people. And I think what I do is actually mentoring them. So all aspects of mentoring, whether it's through this lab or through the private sector, that's what I'm involved at this stage in my career. And I hope to get back into directing and producing gradually. So that's my background.
We're lucky to have you, and we should mention our absent third in the program is Ying Wang, a director and producer, but heavy on, she's an independent filmmaker and truly independent filmmaker who will be one of the other mentors. But thank you for that, Selwyn.
You're welcome. I guess we should try to see whether we have any questions so we can get started.
Yeah, this is a Q&A. So as I understand it, we have some details from Shelley about the application deadline being September 15th, 2022. And I guess we should just start off with a question. Does anyone have a question about how to apply, what this program might mean for them, or what kinds of films are of interest to us as the team selecting projects? Anyone at all?
I think I'm going to ask you the question, because I know that I've had this on outside of this this session, is what are you looking for in the application? What level of doc filmmaker? Can I just submit an idea? Anything like that?
I'm going to ask Selwyn if you want to address that first.
I would say a combination. Personally, I am looking for passion in the filmmaker. And usually if a person writes a very good introductory summary about themselves, or the rationale, or why I want to tell that story, I find that sometimes I get turned on by that. I can feel the passion. And if I feel that in that position on the proposal, I then look for it in the content. I don't think you can divorce one from the other. And I think you have to pitch your project, but you also have to pitch yourself. I think that's very, very important. So we're looking at that intersection of where passion meets the content. And I think in that mix, those projects would sort of jump to the surface. They'll jump to the surface.
I think that's true. And I saw a follow-up question that I think is relevant, and that's, is this for newbies or experienced, or that range? And I think the most important thing is that passion, commitment to the storytelling in documentary form, I think is important to see. Now that might only mean that you've finished, some program in documentary and maybe made a couple of shorts, or it might mean that you've made, several documentaries. So we're open to a range of experience, but having a sort of a clear presentation of why this project now in the context of your, own commitment to the story is important to convey that clearly.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you're a newbie and you have a good idea, there's no reason you should not submit your application and think that you don't have the experience, because it's a kind of a paradox. To get experience, you have to submit something, and everybody, whether they experience or mid-range, they all have to start off with that first project. And invariably, you found that a lot of people have found much greater success in their very first project, because that is the one at that point in their careers, they're very, very passionate, and it is something that is very, very close to them. So they tend to find a way to succeed and tell the story from their perspectives, and sometimes you could be experienced, but the story you have, there's no passion, and it doesn't resonate with a whole bunch of other things. So don't stay on the fence. We are looking for a good combination of experience and good story ideas. So put the story idea at the front, and if we feel that we want to support you, then we will mentor you accordingly. We'll surround you with the right people to help you execute that program, so you can tell the story in the manner in which it needs to be told.
Okay, that's good. And we had Allison wondered if she could ask. We have a really manageable group of people here that if you want to just jump in with a question, feel free. So Allison?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm sorry if I'll try to make it a concise question. I'm just beginning a project with a group of people. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to end up, which is why I'm excited about it, and why I'm excited about documentary. I've done shorts before, but never a long project like I'm working on now. And so when I look at the application, I'm wondering, I don't know, maybe as you've worked on documentaries yourself, how do you leave room for what's going to happen inside of kind of a clear structure of, say, who an audience would be, and market and all of that? Does that make sense?
It does. Lynn, you want to go ahead as the experienced person in that regard, or?
I didn't quite understand the question myself, so it makes sense.
I guess. Oh, sure. I'll be a little
if you could
more
formulate
specific.
it. Try, yeah. Please.
I'm just meeting the group of people I want to work with in September, and so I won't have yet a really clear idea about where this is going to go, but I have a concept and a really strong reason of wanting to work with the people that I'm working with. I'm just wondering if that's enough, or if I should be applying maybe next year when the content of what we're doing becomes a little more clear.
I guess what I would say is making the application might help you formulate your ideas more clearly. So it might be a good exercise, and you might find that you do have such a strong, and when you say the people, I assume you mean the subjects of your documentary. So you have the subjects, you have the themes, you don't actually know all the story arc, I think is what you're saying. You don't know where it will go. I guess you have to sort of maybe elucidate quickly what you think, imagine how it might evolve, while being honest about you're not clear, but it may be a very strong concept with lots of intrinsic drama, and it may not matter if it goes this way or that way, as long as it's probable that there is something for us to see as a potential story. I would encourage you to go through the process in any case,
I think
whether you extend or not.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Selwyn, what do you have any thoughts?
I'll just add, Allison, is that development is sometimes in development you could have a phase 1 and a phase 2, and in some cases a phase 3. So right now you want to, you have the people that you're thinking about making a film. So I'll say you're very early stages of development. So you don't have to say because you don't know exactly where the story is going because you haven't spoken to them, but you should have some initial idea. So phase one of your development, would you trying to find out, maybe you've spoken to one or two people and you have an idea, I think there is a story here. And when you speak to about 5, 6, or 7, then you know what the story is, and then you start to develop it. So I would say if you are so convinced that you should be making a film about this story, you convey that conviction to us. And we can decide, oh, she seems passionate and committed about telling this story. So on that basis of your early commitment, we can say, yes, this is something we'd like to develop. Okay, so we'll be developing phase one of very early stages. So I would say go ahead and submit just as you're telling us what, and just put exactly what you have learned so far and why you want to do it. So the why is more important than anything.
Yeah. Thank you, both of you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have a couple more questions in the chat. So and this we knew would come up, is what you're looking for in terms of the financing scenario. How would you answer that, Lynn? And maybe any examples as we get these questions would be great.
Okay, I might be going off the prescribed script, but I have yet to see realistic financing scenarios presented by candidates. To be honest, most people don't. I don't know if it's as important quality for a filmmaker to understand how the financing works, to be honest. That's more of a producer job. So I would not worry too much. We do have one word that Selwyn mentioned earlier to me, feasibility. So maybe the financing scenario, if you should give an idea of the budget range that you imagine, but honestly, unless you're really deep into it, I don't know if a financing scenario is critical, maybe a budget level.
Yeah. I would say at this stage of the game, and because this is a lab to get you to work into development, it's within development, one of the things you develop is not only the story, but also you develop the budget. So you can't and wouldn't know what that budget is until and unless you have done this development. So I would say you're putting the cart before the horse. Right now, you have to work on the story and then we can budget it at the end. And as Lynn said, the producer would help you fill in the blanks in terms of how much it's going to cost to make this documentary.
Just a quick follow-up on that, Selwyn. It's true that we also do get projects that are further along. They're not all at the same stage. So I think I should add here for everyone's benefit, if you have it, like last year we had at least 2 projects that were really in pre-production or even in mid-production.
Right.
So if you are somebody who's already shot your film, the large majority of it, and you want, but you've done it on your own dime or with some Kickstarter or, you know, Uncle Henry's, you know, inheritance, I'm sorry, like something has happened and you've made this film, but you've shot it or largely, and you want to look at a post process, we have had those applications and strong ones. And so again, I don't think your understanding of how to write a financing structure is that relevant for the Doc Lab. Like you'll learn that.
Yeah, I think we'll give whatever relevant advice, because it seems to me that that question is coming under the assumption that you're approaching an institution like, say, Telefilm or Creative BC or something for production funding, but we are not going to be providing funding. We'll be providing some sort of information as to how you come up with your budget of how much money you need to be asking for. But we don't need to know the funding scenario.
So you can estimate it, but it's not a critical factor. I think we answered that one for you.
Yeah. Okay.
In a similar vein, you keep saying story. So does this mean you're interested in advocacy docs pushing a particular POV, or can more objective docs also be pitched for this the application process? What do you think?
I'll start there and just say that when I use the word story, I don't necessarily mean an advocacy doc. It could be a science and conservation story that explores all sides of an issue. We did have a very good project last year in that area that was a balanced investigation of a conservation area and a species, I think. So that wasn't the package didn't have to be an advocacy one in that case. I don't think it was meant to be. It was a story about a species and all the different people. I just saw an amazing film called The Territory, and maybe it had advocacy, but it was very balanced. What about you, Selwyn?
I would say when we use the word story, we are using a generic word or a generic term there. If somebody asks you, what is your film all about? That's what we mean by story. What is your film all about? Well, it could be a POV doc. It could be this type of traditional doc. It could be a science doc. It could be straight, whatever. So story means what is your film all about? As simple as that. So anything could be about you describe it. You tell us what your film is all about, and that's what your story is. We are not putting it into categories.
Right. It's like the beginning. What do you see as the sort of, arc of your film, or how does it unfold, and who's in it, or what are you conveying?
So the next question was about, do you have a particular interest in impact productions? Would that be answered within what you just said?
I think I have an answer for that, and it's simply, I don't think we have a specific interest in impact productions, we want to have an impact with films insofar as they have an impact for the audience. They engage with their audience, if that's what you mean. But if you mean the afterlife of the film so that it's having an impact on changing the world in a specific direction, I'm going to turn that over to Selwyn.
Again, we get bogged down into these terms, impact, story, and impact. Impact in particular is one of these terms that have become in vogue recently within the last 5-7 years or what have you. I feel that once you make a film, every film has impact. Impact is how do you reach the audience? Some films have a social message, and we tend to feel that if the message is socially relevant, then it would have a bigger impact. But a small film can also have a big impact. It's really how you market the film. So the impact would be a consequence of how much research you have done. You have chosen the right story. You have told the story in the right manner, and hopefully it will have an impact on as wide an audience as possible. So everything we do has impact. It's up to you to have the maximum, to maximize the impact of your film. And that could be done from you promoting it even before you actually start shooting. You can have impact. You're putting it up on social media. You show the film, and it has impact long after the film has been completed.
That's perfect.
So yes, we'll go ahead, Lynn. You want to come back?
No, I agree with that. I hope we're answering the question that the person who asked about as a group, are we specifically looking for impact productions? I think the answer is we're not looking for what is currently being called social justice impact. That doesn't mean we're not, like, we're looking for strong projects that are feasible and with commitment and passion in the filmmaker, well presented, what they're trying to accomplish. I did see something in the chat, and Shelley, I saw that you answered it, but I wanted to just say, if you have financing, a scenario that you want to, that's always going to help us understand if it's feasible, right? So, but if you're just in development, if you have no understanding of how you will finance it, I think it's best to say, I don't know. how this financing will work. But if you
Yeah,
do know, that will indicate that you have some experience.
we do go through the applications like really carefully, of course, but we do look at the overall picture. Am I correct, Lynn? Like it's not like, oh no, the person, you know, they didn't do that, they're out. It's like we're really open to, the idea is what catches it. You know, the person's next, like, are you strong enough? Are you going to be able to commit to the program? It is a 5-month program. It starts in November, ends in March. Now I'm guessing, is that 5 months? It starts in November with a couple sessions that Lynn's going to bring in some guests and go through, you know, we're going to talk through that. Then we're going to go through, you know, in person at the festival, which is going to be pretty intense. We're going to do, you know, we're going to be there for, I think it's the 3-day, and you know, we'll have guests that are actually documentarians that are at the festival. So we're hoping, we haven't done a schedule yet, but you know, we're going to bring them in. You're going to meet all kinds of people, you know, we'll be talking pitching and things like that. So it's overall, you can commit, you're strong, you know how to fill out an application, that kind of thing. So don't sweat it too much. That's sort of what I'm saying as the administrator portion. And Lynn?
I think, yeah, it's the idea and your commitment, your passion, as Selwyn has spoken to. You know, we're not just looking for films at the beginning in development. So obviously, if you have shot tape and you have a sizzle or a trick teaser or even just an interview select, I mean, something that shows us your main characters, that's I think helpful, depending on where you're at. But
yeah, that's a bonus, but not required. We don't require video, right?
We don't, but a lot of the candidates last year did have sizzles or teasers, and sometimes if it's not well done, it hurts, and if it's well done, it really helps. Like how do you feel about that, Selwyn?
Well, I was going to say, if you have financing, some people get money from Canada Council, you know, to do development or to do research. Of course, put that in the background to the project. Now, if somebody has a project, but it doesn't have that financing, it's not going to hurt them necessarily because they don't have any financing. So what I'm saying, it cannot hurt you to put the fact that you have money there, but if you didn't have it, it is not going to hurt you, right? Because we are not specifically putting a financial package together. We might make recommendations as to how you might be able to finance your project. But that's part of what you're going to get by attending the lab.
And I'm just going to jump in before Lynn here, because one of the things we do is once we've picked the, you know, our applicants and we get our people, is Lynn will look at them and decide where they need the extra mentorship. Like you may need extra budgetary mentorship, or you might need mentorship in regards to the story itself, or having to be able to access, you know, things like that. So there is a question there that Anna has asked Lynn, that, you know, saying that, you know, is this all you're doing, story development and budget? But I personally believe you kind of focus on what's needed, right? So I'll let you answer that if you can. And then just above Natalie's question as well about audience engagement.
Okay, I'm just gonna outline from my experience last year. We actually start with a couple of sessions as a group, and then one-on-one with your mentor. So each of the 3 of us mentors take 2 participants on, and we help shape basically your synopsis, your pitch. So one of the ideas is we bring a lot of people from across Canada and other parts of the world to listen to your pitch, to you present your idea that we've helped you shape, so that you can actually advance your project with partners. So we have focused a lot on that in the last session. And that includes distribution partners, you know, broadcasters and platforms, OTTs, things like that, so you can get the budget. We also bring in filmmakers to talk about their experiences developing impact campaigns, audience engagement campaigns as they evolve their film, as they shoot their film. So we have a number of different angles that we develop. We do one-on-ones at times online, you know, how to budget, like we go over budgets. I've done that myself with people. analyzing it with them and helping them develop their project from whatever stage it's at. So I hope this is giving you an idea. We introduce you to a lot of people from across Canada and other places, the UK, Spain, the US, to come in and talk to you about, how to make your story stronger and to reach a wider audience and to engage them. And we bring in story editors, we can bring in DOPs to talk about, your plans for production in terms of a DOP or editing. We did, what's your editing process look like? How do you approach it? And things, it's quite a wide range of topics, all focused on making your documentary, advancing your documentary, financing, and launching your documentary. Does that help a little bit?
It does. And, just to add to that, I would say the concept of impact becomes more relevant depending on what stage you are at in the development. If you're at the very, very beginning of making the film, you have no idea of your story. What is your film all about? Until and unless you have that resolved, you will then know, okay, this story or this film falls for a significant amount of impact during the latter stages of production and then when it comes out. So to bring impact in there, there's such a thing as an impact producer. So it's going to raise your budget significantly. And all these things, you're not going to really be aware of it if you're at the very early stages of development. So as Lynn has been saying, if when we hear your story, we'll say, you know what, this film lends itself to this type of approach, and we'd bring in somebody who has worked on that type of documentary. But every documentary does not necessarily need to have an impact producer, especially at this very early stage of the game, which I think is where the majority of questions are coming from so far.
I just wanted to know even your process for mentorship, Lynn. That would be great. And Selwyn, like both of you, sort of how, somebody comes in, what's that mean? This could be their first mentorship that they've ever had a part of in a program like this. Can you sort of expand on that, Lynn?
Oh, I can expand on it. It usually means regular meetings with the filmmaker, and I do sort of an intake with them to sort of build a plan, what we're trying to achieve and what kinds of resources, human resources, contacts, information that they might need. And then we sort of meet regularly and participate in the Doc Lab group events from early on to the end and past the end usually. So I think we're obliged to do a couple hours a month at the most with our participants. But I like to act as a resource. I like to make myself, because like Selwyn and probably like Ying, mentoring is one of the, at this stage of my life, I find it to be extremely rewarding. How about you?
I find with you, Lynn, is that you keep in touch. Like you're keeping in touch with all of your people. So it's not like, oh, program's over, here you go. See ya. Yeah,
no, I have a lot of time and energy. And while I'm working full time on my own projects and more, I'm like Selwyn and Ying, I can speak to, we love documentary. We love the community. It's a big, interesting, and we have been fortunate to be able to work in it. And we like to share. I think that's it. I think it's a personality type. What do you think, Selwyn?
Well, every film that I've made, I've served as a mentor to, I've made about 50 films for the National Film Board, and each project I was mentoring the director from the very stage, because they have to submit an idea to me, and I have to submit an idea to the executive producer, who has to submit it to the director general in Montreal. So the package that goes out has to be reflective and has to be at the very best level in terms of how it's written. It's not all over the map, So I come in from that very, very beginning in helping them shape the document. And as we go later and through the process, I help them select the people who are going to be working in the film. And in the editing room, I'm sitting there with the director and the editor, and I'm helping them shape the film. And you want a composer, and I'm saying, well, Selwyn, I don't know anything about music. I said, okay, I don't, but I know this is the type of music you'll be looking for. So the role of mentoring, you're just there to support and to supplement and to fill in all of the necessary things that you make sure that the film, when it's completed, you have the best possible film that could have been done on the subject matter and the budget with which you had to work. You know, that is what I see my role of mentoring is. So right now I'm mentoring a lot of people who are making their first films through Tell Us Story Hive. And I'm enjoying that, you know. They phone me up, we have Zoom meetings, we talk about a whole bunch of things, and it's amazing the amount of things they are not aware of because they're getting into this aspect for the first time, but you don't want to be bogged down, you know. But I said, okay, you're doing this, have you cleared that? You know, did you get permission from the subjects you're interviewing? Oh, I didn't know we had to do that. You know, all of that is really part of the mentoring, but it's part of the experience that Lynn and I have from making previous documentaries. So it really depends on how green the filmmaker is or how experienced. And you're never too green and you're never too experienced. There's always room for mentoring.
I'm getting mentored right now through that, like always. And I'm actually getting mentored by young filmmakers that I've met in the community. Like that is another thing, is you're always learning new things from emerging or mid-career filmmakers. So it's a very, it's like being in university or whatever all your life.
And you're also welcomed into if you get in the program, you're welcomed into the Whistler Film Festival community, which means you get a free pass to the festival, which is a $450 value. You're gonna have to find your own way there, but if you've got a company, there's ways that you can, you know, write off travel. You can approach also your provincial funding bodies to get you there. It's pretty open now since COVID to, you know, there is some funding available for things like that. We can give you a letter of support if you need that in order to get into, you know, to get some kind of funding to come to the program. It's just a wide door. Yes, Lynn.
Now, last year, and I believe the years before that, the Whistler Film Festival Doc Lab participants also received free passes to the Factual West event in November. Is that true this year? I thought it was.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Which is a very valuable, even though not everybody that's making documentaries wants to go to a factual entertainment, there's overlap and lots of things are learned there. There's master story and editing and lots of networking. So that's a real value if you're in the Vancouver or you're able to get here for late November. We'll be there, or at least I will, and I imagine Selwyn on hand to act as point people during that 2-day event. I think it's a 2-day event.
Yeah, that's perfect. We've got about 5 minutes officially or unofficially. Does anybody have any questions about their particular project they're working on? That you've got two of the best here that you would like to ask that question? Just unmute yourself and hop on if you want. If not,
we will be wrapping up early.
We'll be wrapping up early. Yeah, just maybe if you, Lynn and Selwyn, or if you just want to email me, I'm going to put my email into the chat. Please feel free to, if you've got some questions and you just didn't remember to ask or think of how to ask them, just contact me, and I will pass it on to these wonderful people here. There we go.
That sounds good. Something came in from
the audience engagement. Natalie's just wondered if you could speak a little more specific about the audience engagement strategy, please.
So I thought I sort of touched on it very in passing, which is to say, I guess if you're at that stage where you're trying to develop an audience engagement strategy, we would try to put you together. Well, we'll bring in someone, a specialist, to speak to that. I don't myself write those things very often in my proposals, but I have seen them and I think we've done them, but they're not a big part. Selwyn, so I guess how I would handle that if there was a project and in the intake, the filmmaker indicated that they wanted to do an audience engagement strategy as part of their development and moving their project forward, then we would bring in the resources to do that and share resources among ourselves. So I hope that helps.
I would say the type of engagement strategy is definitely dependent on the type of story you're telling. So as I said previously, until and unless I get a sense as to what story you're telling, I don't know what the audience is and what strategy to come up with. It varies from film to film to film. Okay, so audience engagement is something that if you're in a big organization, they might have a marketing department and they would come up with the strategy for marketing that film. But at this level, I'm not sure that you can come up with an audience engagement where you're still working on developing the film. You might have generic ideas, right? If you're making a documentary on say Leonard Cohen or something, somebody like that, and you say, okay, well, maybe this could be marketed to, you know, music aficionados or just people who love poetry, a whole bunch of different things like that. But you must have the story, some sense as to what story is all about before you can say, okay, how am I going to engage the audience in this film? I've done a lot of film about as a matter of fact, somebody has sent me an email and I did films about residential schools. And the last film I did was in 2019. And I just saw that UBC is putting out something in September and they're using a film I did called Holy Angels, right? So whoever's doing the marketing strategy, it's a whole indigenous sort of theme and they've got certain films that they want to talk about, but it is going to be on social media. Right? So I did that film 3 years ago. 4 years ago, when we were making a film, we did not know what type of audience, but all of a sudden, residential schools is back in the news so that the film has found a new way to be remarketed, right? So that's part of the marketing strategy, but it's something that is continually evolving. And it's the marketing people who can pick up on those things and capitalize on it. That is what marketing strategy is all about. That's an example, I would say.
And Lynn, question for you: with we had a Q&A with the Doc Canada group, and it was really informative, basically about the concierge for, you know, trying to get your your documentary out there. Can you add to that a bit? And also, just in case you don't remember, they're giving free memberships for anybody from the BIPOC community to the Doc Canada. But
that's right. You definitely, everyone I hope has already checked out Doc Canada, Doc BC, and it is free for anyone identifying as, I think it's underrepresented, it might just be BIPOC, but in any case, do reach out. And there is the Doc Concierge on Doc National. Can't recommend that organization enough. So sign up and access a lot of resources on that site. And did you have a second part of that question? I think I'm just saying, encouraging people to apply. And
what kind of things should they apply to? Like, as far as being memberships and stuff, what would you recommend at this stage if they're kind of emerging and not quite sure what to do?
Well, first things first, sign up for the Documentary Organization of Canada. I think it's doc.org, www.doc.org. Oh no, it's .ca. Thank you. .ca, and sign up and join the national community and the regional. We have a BC, Yukon, Northwest Territories region, and with a brilliant leadership with Baljit Sangra, who you mentioned before, Selwyn, a great filmmaker and advocate for documentary in Canada. Other groups, well, depending on how you identify yourself, there are, Women in Film has documentary people. There's the there's something, what's it called? There's the Black Screen Office of Canada, the Indigenous Screen Office. I don't think you can join as a member, but you can access resources on those websites. Do you have any other suggestions, Selwyn?
Well, for people based in Vancouver, I usually say you can join a film co-op, and the two here, Cineworks, and they used to be video in, video out. I'm not sure if they're still in existence, you know, but film co-ops is a good place to start.
Mhm.
And you get to meet people. And I just find, you know, go to film festivals and try to see as many documentaries as possible and stay for the Q&A. You can learn a lot and meet a lot of people in that sort of ambience, right? Film festivals I recommend highly.
That's right. I mean, I won't name who, but one of the people I see on this met at the Doxa Film Festival, another great organization to get involved with as a volunteer or just go to the film festival. But one among you, Selwyn and I both met. He probably doesn't remember. Just after the masterclass with Ali Kazemi, I believe, at the Doc Lab mixer. Anyway, yeah, those are great places to meet people and develop your network among your peers, and also meet other people who can introduce you. So a big part of the Whistler Film Festival Doc Lab is building your local and national and international community of documentary colleagues. It's a big opportunity for that. There's no doubt in my mind. It's well worth it. But I'm a producer, and networking is pretty much the lifeblood of producing.
So I think to wind it up, again, if you have any questions, I have my email address in the chat. I can forward it to Selwyn and Lynn. What is name one of your favorite documentaries, Lynn? And same to Selwyn.
Oh, favorite documentary.
Oh, I've got a few. I just saw an amazing one this week called The Territory, which was shot in the Amazon. Just loved it. Beautifully shot, very nuanced, powerful, you know, tears and laughter and impact. I'm sure it's going to have a big impact. I also love, you know, Searching for the Wrong-Eyed Jesus, Darwin's Nightmare. I can go on. And Holy Angels.
Oh, there we go. How about you, Selwyn? Give us something to watch. What are we going to watch?
You know, I like a documentary I produced with Charles Officer called Mighty Jerome, 2010. And it was just a knowledge network about 3 days ago, 10 years after it's been out there. And it's done extremely well. And I look at it and it has everything. It has good story, good cinematography, access, you name it, it's there. And yep, it's my favorite, even though I produced it.
Well, Charles is a friend of the festival and a friend of mine. So it would be nice to maybe get him to drop in and say hi to the new group this year. That would be amazing to get him there. But maybe you have more pull with him, Selwyn.
Well, the thing is, it's such a small world. When Charles was developing that project, I actually took him to Whistler Film Festival, and he got to meet some of the folks from the festival, I think. And the following year, I was there with him when he showed his feature film. The other film that premiered there. So we have a relationship that goes back there, because, you know, that's what I mean by mentoring. You know, Charles was a bit nervous when he took on this documentary. His training and his experience was primarily in doing narrative feature, you know, and we had good discussions about that. And he really appreciated the fact that we could have these discussions, a very positive relationship. After all these years, you know, we communicate and we have stayed in touch.
And that's how this industry works, I think, doesn't it, Lynn? Is by, you do so many open doors and introductions, and, you know, sometimes you hear back from people that they, you know, picked up on that guest and they're actually working with them now. Or I think it was in the group the year before, they're working together. There's sometimes you meet your cohort and all of a sudden you're jumping on as their producer, or, you know, you're sharing information on the best editor that, you know, you could use. And I believe that's part of how these programs work best, is the circular portion of it all. And then you bring your doc back to the Whistler Film Festival, which is what we ultimately would love to see.
Yeah.
I would do it myself, except for I'm advising, but I would do, I would put in my,
Yeah,
I
okay.
would put my project in and work with Selwyn.
I think I'm just going to throw out one more question because course of history about, can you also mentor on how to network for introverts? I know I'm going to let these guys answer, but we do have somebody who's coming in to do some pitching with the festival that maybe we'll be able to pull him in and they give advice on, you know, exactly what to do there. But Lynn, what would you say? And then we'll end it with that.
Oh, I would say that there is an element of performativity, which is I'm an introvert who's developed an extrovert personality so that I can work. That's how I see it. So I think maybe that's part of the process. What do you think, Selwyn? Is that possibly true?
I'm an introvert as well. I would say through my experience, my recommendation is to be yourself. And I just want to say sometimes you go to a festival and you're just there, you don't know anybody. And you're just standing by yourself and you feel a bit odd. And then out of the blue, somebody, especially in this community, somebody will walk up to you and says, "What do you do?" And you're scared. Am I a filmmaker? No, I'm not a filmmaker yet, but I have an idea. What is it all about? So you start a conversation and you'd be surprised to know that that is how I have actually been successful in my networking, just running up to people and they just ask me that simple question: who are you and what do you do? Be prepared to have that conversation. But if you're shy to the point where, well, you don't want to communicate, I think you're in the wrong business, because this business is all about collaboration. But if you're true to yourself and you're not out there, because the opposite end, people get overly aggressive. Oh, here's Lynn. Lynn, I've got a project for you. And that absolutely turns Lynn off, and she's trying to avoid you for the rest of the festival. So it's got to happen. It's got to happen organically. Let it happen organically.
Oh, dear.
Well, and I also know this for sure because I saw Lynn in action last year for the festival. There was a lot of people who have been stuck in their house for 2 years. And then all of a sudden we were the only one of the last festivals to be open again last year.
Mm-hmm.
And Lynn is such a safety zone. And so she made sure she had her little ducklings in a row. Everybody was surrounded by her care and, you know, hey, introducing you to this person, that person. So you're going to see that, like, I find myself at Whistler Film Festival, all of, you know, the staff and everybody, we're also welcoming and we're very safe. It's a safe zone in all of our programs. So it's not, you know, this big competition within the program. So don't be worried. And it's a safe space. There's no stupid questions, right? So, yeah. So what's your last word from Lynn and Selwyn? And I want to thank everybody for coming. It was so nice to be able to talk about this because this is one of my favorite labs to be in because of, I love documentaries myself. I just am not a filmmaker. But Lynn, what would you like to say to the group before we go?
I look forward to meeting you and hearing about your project. So that's look forward to that in the near future.
Excellent. And Selwyn,
Words
of wisdom.
Words of wisdom is always be appreciative of feedback, positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
Always appreciate the fact that somebody takes the time to tell you something about your project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Biggest gift.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I want to thank you guys both because I know you're super busy. So we're glad we could steal you away for the hour. And we want to thank everybody else because we know you're probably hiding out at work or something watching this. So thank you. And looking forward to some applications. Don't forget the deadline. We can't accept after deadline. So get it in early so we have lots of time to look at it. Or if you have any questions, contact me.
Okay.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thanks.